You can hide by name. It'll bring up the name list, and you can choose objects and then hide the objects that you select. You can hide by hit, so you can click on that and hide objects that you click on. Unhide all, and the same for unhide by name. So if we hide unselected and then unhide by name, we could just unhide that. So lots of very useful options there for hiding objects. Let's unhide them all again. It's very similar options for freezing. Freeze selected, freeze by name, freeze by hit, same kind of system. There we go. Click off that, unfreeze all. Basically the same thing, but in this case freezing. Then for objects that you have selected, you can change them so that they display as a box. You can turn off or on backface culling, which is a wireframe display option, which is as far as I can see is on by default. Yeah. You can change it so you only see the edges, or you can actually see the triangles which make up the entire facet of the face. You can just turn on vertex ticks for the selected objects. You can see all the vertices. You can turn on the trajectory, which is useful when it's animated. You can make the object see-through. So if I make it shaded mode now, you can actually see through the object. You could make it ignore extents, which is useful for when you're zooming to objects around the scene. Actually, talking of zooming, that's another thing you can do in the viewport, which I'll just skip back to quickly. If you have an object and it's over here, and we want to look at that object, press Z, and Max will zoom to that object and focus on it. Select that T-port over there, press Z, and we've zoomed to that object. Press this one, zoom to that one, zoom to that. That one, zoom to that. Select a bunch of objects and it'll zoom to them. It'll use the common center. So when you're using zoom extents, if you zoom to the scene extents, which is this button here, it will try and actually focus on everything in the entire scene. Now at the moment, if we put this teapot right over here and zoom extents, we're not really getting that good a zoom, and it may be that this object, you want to ignore it for some reason. So you can turn on ignore extents, and when we zoom to the extent of the scene, it gets ignored, and we just zoom to the other teapots. So that's what zoom extents does. Show frozen in grey. We'll freeze this particular teapot, and it's gone grey. We'll unfreeze it again, unfreeze all. Turn off frozen in grey, freeze it, and it's not grey anymore, but it's still frozen. You can see I can't actually select it. It's actually usually a pretty good cue to actually have your frozen objects turn up in grey, so it's best to leave that on. And then you have vertex colors, where if you actually have painted vertex colors on the objects, you can actually show those in the viewport as well. Okay, so there we go, that's the command panel. The final option on the command panel is utilities, and in here you'll find various, well, as you can imagine, utilities for working with Macs. For instance, there's a color clipboard, which is actually quite useful when you're working with textures, which allows you to, let's say we're working with a material here and we make a nice green color, let's say, make a nice green. We like that green, and when we want to use it in other textures, you can just drag it off over here and keep a copy on the color clipboard. So quite a useful little utility there. There's a measure tool, motion capture, reset Xforms, Max script, reactor. Reactor is actually the main utility, and it's here. Actually, I should say reactor is one of the main utilities, and it's here you actually have to go to simulate your reactor dynamic simulation. So quite a major utility there. You can configure the panel, you can add more buttons to it, and then you can drag on other utilities that you may have. Let's say, for instance, we've got UVW remove, which will remove UVW mapping from objects. You can put that there. Okay, that. And you can see now you've got more buttons, and you've got UVW remove there. Another thing you could do, if you don't want to access a utility from here, is you could customize your user interface and give it a keyboard shortcut. So you could apply UV remove utility by using that particular method. So there we go, that's the command panel, and as you can see, you know, there's a huge amount of workflow tools there. It's a very big feature of Mac.